I don't have specific numbers that I'm at liberty to share right now, but we will have the capacity in terms of 100 to 150 satellites. We'll have that capacity very early in 2016. That will allow us to image practically the entire Earth every day. But before we get to that point, we're launching every 60 to 90 days. So we'll go from monthly imaging to multiple times per month, to weekly, to multiple times per week, to daily. So the ramp of cadence will go quite rapidly. Those launches have all been booked, all been paid for, and we're building satellites on a regular basis in our facility in San Francisco.
มีท่านใดมีคำถามเพิ่มเติมไหมคะท่านสามารถยกมือขึ้นได้เลยค่ะ
I also wanted to emphasize that Alex and I will be here through lunch. I understand sometimes asking a question in front of a large group probably isn't the most fun thing to do. So if you have any specific questions or you'd like to see specific data, we're happy to show that. And then we're here also after lunch if you want to have an extended conversation about applications or the schedule that we're ramping up with our partners, MapPoint Asia.
And if you want to come and have a look at the satellite in closer detail, please, we're here for a while, and will be a pleasure to demonstrate it to you.
Well, my question would be, how much data is contained in single image you collect? Let's say Thailand image.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so each image is about 100 square kilometers. And as we were just looking at, let's say, this strip of images that was just captured yesterday in Thailand, I can give you just a really quick calculation here. We have 26 images at 100 square kilometers apiece, so that's 2,600 square kilometers captured in a few minutes and delivered to us within hours. So in terms of strictly area, we have a lot of area covered in a very short period of time just with one satellite. The second half of that would be how we present the data. One thing that we're doing, I think Alex showed you some of the visual image enhancements that we've been able to do with our imagery, so we can provide our partners and customers images that they can use in a visual environment, but we also collect the data in a 12-bit, for those of you who are technical professionals, in a 12-bit format that gives you the ability to do things like land cover classification or change detection with geographic information systems software tools. So these are just not pretty pictures, they also can be used in an analytics environment.
Okay, and can you please explain how images are interpreted? Because by nature, satellite image they're historic information. They're like history, not so much on future. But how would you say this can be a future forecasting thing for the government?
Yeah, no, I would be happy to take that. It kind of goes back to what I was describing a little bit earlier, which is that forensic analysis. So if you're constantly looking at a region over months and years, you will begin to notice trends and patterns. And in the case of the fires we're seeing right now, because we have this data set collected during this season, you can actually see the regions where the fires happened, and therefore kind of what's left and what might happen next year. So by understanding in a lot of detail what has happened this year, you should be able to pinpoint areas at risk the following year, the areas that haven't burned, or the areas that look specifically dry or specifically at risk. So by understanding in great detail the current situation, that could be easily used by people that understand issues to forecast what might happen next year and potentially how you might be able to prevent or help solve those problems going forward.
Okay, thank you. And now I have a very big question. Well, MapPoint Asia Company Thailand Limited has been in Thailand for 21 years. They have been established since 1994, and they've been working with the government section, with military section, and the police section. How would your company or your project help the government section in general? Mm-hmm. How would you help us, MapPoint Asia, to help them?
I can answer that. At least I can start, and then Alex can jump in if he likes.
It's a big question.
It's a very large question. I think it's an interesting thing. So when I first started talking to the folks from MapPoint Asia and I was telling them what we were doing, they didn't believe us, and rightfully so. I think any of you in Thailand that have tried to get satellite imagery before, it's probably been quite frustrating because you have a lot of clouds, and typically you're working with data that takes a while to collect, and when you have the opportunity to collect that data, it's cloudy. So the value proposition, or what MapPoint Asia saw in what we were doing that would be useful for Thailand, was that we were always collecting, and as we add, like I said, this is only with 20 satellites approximately right now. When we get to 40 satellites, when we get to 60, when we get to 80, when we get to 100, every time one of our satellites is over Thailand, which is every day, multiple times per day, we will collect data. Depending on the time of year, we're going to collect a lot of pictures of clouds of Thailand. However, on days like you saw the last couple of days or last couple of weeks, I've showed images of Thailand. They were actually relatively clear. So the fact that you'll have a reliable source for usable information for your country, I think that is where the value that MapPoint Asia saw in what we were doing. And as our partner, they understand the local market. We can guess at what the government would want to do with this data, but they understand how that data can be used, and they're actually professionals in using it. So they'll be able to create products and services around this data set that can answer really critical questions. We've talked a lot about the fire question, but also flooding, also urban development, all those questions that maybe are difficult to answer at a national scale, they'll be able to answer now with this data set.
Thank you. And how would you do it differently between obtaining the satellite information for the commercial use and for the government use? What's the difference between that you're doing, and what's the challenge that come out from that?
Yeah, I'm happy to take that. In general, we're building scalable infrastructure that could be deployed in the cloud with specific security arrangements for various types of users. We tend to use kind of best-in-class techniques. And for important customers, we are absolutely willing to understand how this needs to be presented and in what format, and sometimes in what geography too.
So, but in terms of commercial use and, for the government, the police, is it more difficult for you to work on this sector than the commercial sector?
Well, this is why we're working with clients like MapPoint Asia. So this is what our partners are good at doing, and we'd like to support them with more information to be able to produce more interesting products for the government clients.
Right.
And I'd also just add one thing to that, make a distinction between our company and perhaps other aerospace companies. There have been several other aerospace companies that have launched satellites, other US companies. I'll give you examples. Digital Globe is probably one that some of you are familiar with. They are by name and by nature a commercial company, but their primary customer is the US government, which means the US government essentially tells them where that satellite should be pointing, where that satellite should be taking pictures, and oftentimes they have been unable to service customers from other industries or even governments from other countries because the US government is paying so much money to this one company, and they effectively control that asset in space. We, as a very young company, made a decision that we wanted this data set to be accessible to everyone. We don't care if you live in Thailand, if you're a commercial user or a government user, that data is going to be accessible to you. I understand there are probably local restrictions or local things that we don't understand yet, which is why we work with a local partner like MapPoint Asia. But in terms of making that data available, like I said earlier, we make all the data that we collect over Thailand available to MapPoint Asia, and then of course they will work with the military, with the police, with different agencies of the government and private sector in the best way possible to provide that information.